Today we're very excited to have one of our new members. Her name is Lisa Braithwaite. She comes to us via, I believe she's down in the Southern California, Santa Barbara area. She comes to us via Judy Hawkins, who some of you may know was a former board member of Cameo. Lisa is a public speaking coach, trainer, and author of the book Presenting for Humans, Insights for Speakers on Ditching Perfection and Creating Connection. So Lisa, I want to say hi, but before we do, I'd like to just get a quick introduction of who we've got on the phone to create some of that connection. I'm going to just go down the list. If you could tell me your name and where you service and your name, organization, and where you service. So let's start with Alice. I'm going to unmute everyone. Why isn't, there we go.
It's Alice.
Yes, Alice.
Upstate New York, and I do training and development, mostly in higher ed. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Cindy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Small Business Development Center serving Monterey and San Benito counties.
Fantastic. Claudia Moreno, I can't unmute you, so.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Moreno, now with Small Business Majority in Southern California.
Fantastic. It looks like I am having trouble unmuting people. Jen Hughes, are you able to introduce yourself? You're on mute. Yes. Okay. It looks like somehow I have lost, let me see, the ability to, Aurora, can you unmute everybody? Looks like if you're able to.
Some people are popping in on the chat too.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Jen Hughes, Ventures Nonprofit up in Seattle. Hi, Jen. Nice to meet you. Why don't we have John introduce himself in the chat? Thank you for. John. Joy Taylor, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself in chat? In the chat room, in the chat box. If everybody needs to know where the chat box is, if you drag your cursor, put it on the screen and drag it to the bottom, there'll be a bar that pops up. Lori Van Bieber, Richard, go everybody. If you want to go ahead and pop your names and your organization where you serve into chat. Thank you, Lori. With Cal Coast Small Business Lender, she covers California. Excellent, thank you. Everybody can go ahead and chime in. You don't need to wait for me. Richard, Stephanie, Stephen, and I think we have a few people on the phone. Joy, thank you, Joy. And Steve is from West, serving Mendo and Lake counties. Hi, Steve. Cindy, thank you. Cal Coastal SPDC. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Cynthia. Cynthia's from Sisita. Great, thank you. Down in Southern California. Yeah, the other, so the other thing to note, if you are sending chats, there's an option to do to all panelists. There's a little drop down arrow you can do to all panelists and attendees. You want to make sure you hit attendees. Stephen Hoffman. Hi, Stephen in Southern Oregon. Stephanie Hoffman. Sorry about that, Stephanie. Wait, yes. Great. Thank you all for chiming in. And I'd like to now turn it over to Lisa, who's going to tell us the secrets to webinar success. Thanks, Lisa. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Already we can see that there there are some complicating factors to virtual training. There are a lot of little nuances and little logistical things that we need to learn about how to type into the chat and how to get to the chat and how to make sure you're typing to the right people in the chat and how to mute and unmute. So it can be complicated. It can be a little scary if you haven't done it before. I've been doing webinars on many platforms for many years, and I still get super anxious every time, and I will still be anxious today about Zoom. Even though I've been using Zoom for a while, I'm still anxious every time. So, but because as Heidi was just saying, I'm all about ditching perfection and creating connection. We're not trying to be perfect here. We're just trying to connect with our audiences. So I see a lot of California and Southern California people here today, and I'm based in Ojai. I'm originally from Santa Barbara and grew up in Santa Barbara and Carpinteria, and then lived there again as an adult for 28 years with my husband. And I've been in Ojai now for about 2.5 years. So if you ever want to come visit Ojai and do some wine tasting and, you know, check out the sites of Ojai, I can tell you all the good spots. I am a public speaking coach and trainer, and I mentor entrepreneurs and business professionals to help them deliver meaningful and memorable presentations in order to build their visibility and build their credibility and build their businesses through speaking. So today, and I am wearing my Dorky headset. What do you think? Super cute. My new microphone is coming this weekend, so I'm doing the old school headset today. And I appreciate those of you who've already typed into the chat about who you are and where you're from and what you do, because I was going to ask you to do that anyway. So I see we've already gotten off to a good start. Thank you for the compliment on my Dorky headset. I appreciate it. I am going to take myself off of video, partly because it's distracting to you, and also it's distracting to me to see my little face over there in the corner. So I'm going to take myself off video and I'm going to go straight into the slides. And then I will come back at the end, and then I will be able to look at you. Oh no, yes, ditching perfection. Our host lost her internet connection. And this is actually something I'm going to talk about in a little while. And so something that I don't typically record on webinars and virtual trainings, but some things that are really important are these kinds of housekeeping, right? And so the line has been muted. So it's one of the things you're going to want to remember. So it's kind of meta because I'm going to talk about webinars while I'm doing a webinar. But you want to mute the people in the background or ask people to mute themselves. You want to invite people to find the chat and figure out how to use the chat. And so we've been doing some of this here, and some of you have already been typing into the chat. If you haven't yet, now's a good time to just type in and say hello and introduce yourself. If you haven't, that's fine. I am looking at the chat kind of on the side as I'm talking here, but also I know Heidi's around in there somewhere, and we'll also be looking at the chat. And sometimes we do get booted off our technology, which is why it's really helpful to have somebody helping you, why it's helpful to have somebody supporting you on your webinar, even if they don't really know anything technical. What they can do is keep talking to your audience and just let them know, hey, Lisa got booted off the platform and she'll be back. There's Aurora. Aurora's back. So this is another good reason why you should always have somebody helping you, and you're going to see all of the things today that happen on webinars because technology is never perfect. I also like to ask people to, for you all who are on today, I know that you're multitasking because this is what we do when we're sitting at our desks. So I do like to ask people on webinars to pick something that doesn't require a lot of thinking. Okay, so if you're on Facebook, if you're checking your email, that's going to take some of your concentration away from this. But if there's something that you can do, that doesn't require a lot of attention, but you still feel you need to multitask, I understand, because I know you're going to be doing that, most likely. One last thing I want to mention to you too, as webinar hosts, always make sure you check your phone and that your volume is turned off. So I leave my phone on mute all the time. My phone never rings out loud. However, last night I was turning up the volume on maybe a YouTube video or something, and meant to turn on my media volume and turned up my ringer volume. And so I checked my phone right before this webinar, and sure enough, my ringer volume was super high. So if somebody called me in this webinar, I would have had quite well, it would have startled me. It would have been a rude awakening. So these are things that you have to do every time. You just have to keep doing them to make sure. You can't get complacent because you just don't know how you might possibly mess up. Okay, so type into the chat, how many of you are currently doing live presentations of some sort in front of live audiences? Okay, so not necessarily webinars. How many of you actually stand up in front of live audiences? Okay, great. Yeah, type live into the chat, and do make sure that you're typing to all panelists and attendees, then everybody can see them. Okay, great. So a lot of you are doing live. Brilliant. So moving from live trainings to webinars is not going to be hard for you. Yeah. Now, how many of you are already doing virtual trainings and webinars, whether you're using Facebook Live or Zoom or other platforms? Type virtual into the chat. So I know how many of you are doing virtual. Okay, so, or no, or type no if you're not doing virtual. Okay, good. So some of you are doing, yeah, conference calls, not yet. Some full-on webinars with slideshows like Jean, and some people not doing anything yet. Okay, good. And how many of you just sit behind your computer and never talk to a live human being for days on end? Anybody? Just type hermit. Type hermit if you are the person who just sits behind your computer for days on end and never sees any live people at all. Because that's me. I mean, I'm a speaker and I'm a trainer and I'm an outgoing person, but honestly, most of the time I would rather do this. I would rather sit behind my computer and never see another human being. It's terrible. So public speaking, while many people don't enjoy it, it is free, and it is a great way to spread your message and get out into the world, and really for people to get to know you and build that know, like, and trust factor. So whether you're doing speaking live or you're doing it virtually, it's a really important way to get visibility and build credibility for what you're doing out in the world. And you know, we all like free, right? I mean, if you love free, you can just type love free in the chat box. But the more things we can do for free and save money in our businesses and save money for our companies, we love that. And so webinars and virtual trainings are, let's just say, low cost. They're not always free, but they're a low cost way to get your message out. And we also know that, you know, because many of us are busy and a lot of us do have to travel and spend time and money to deliver training, which I do. I travel all over the country to deliver corporate training about public speaking and presentation skills. So I don't love that. Personally, I'm not a big fan of business travel. So I like to find as many ways as possible to get my message out to the world, like this. There I am wearing the Dorky Headset. And you can conduct virtual training from your home or your office. Now for me, I work out of my home. Are any of you working out of your home today? Type in the chat home if you're at home, or office if you're in your office, in your work office. Okay, so some people are at home, some are in your offices. And so that's another, like, you know, let's just be honest. I'm dressed today and I'm dressed in that picture, but sometimes I am in my pajamas. Now I will warn you, if you do work from home, please wear pants, okay? Please wear pants. I'm sure you've all seen the videos online of the people who mistakenly thought they weren't going to be seen in their full outfit. And I'll give an example. One time, because I do work from home, my cats were wrestling right next to their electric drinking fountain. And yes, out of the corner of my eye, I saw them getting closer. I saw the drinking fountain scooching closer and closer to the side of the counter. And next thing you know, it went flying and water went everywhere. And I jumped up and I was on a live call with one person, luckily with a client, live call, jumped up, and I had my, my pajama bottoms on. So yes, you can conduct virtual trainings from your home or office, but when you do, please remember to have clothes on. That your audiences will appreciate that. So this is a way to get your message out to your audience at little to no cost very quickly. It's very quick to put a webinar together, right? You don't have to get on planes, trains, and automobiles, and you can put this together right at your desk and get it out in a very short amount of time. And really, there are as many ways to combine platforms and presentation styles as there are people who want to do virtual training. So there's so many different ways you can do this. And we're going to talk about that today. They don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be scary or stressful. There's so many ways to do them, and you can do them in a way that suits you and suits your needs. I want to make sure, please type in the chat if you got the worksheet. Type yes if you got the worksheet that I sent to Cameo. Okay, so some people may not have gotten it. Well, if you didn't get it, yeah, I think you will be able to get it. Heidi, Aurora, how are we getting the worksheet to people who may not have gotten it yet? If you can type or jump in and let us know. Oh, the worksheet was emailed. Okay, so if you registered, you got a worksheet. And you know what? Now I don't even know where my copy of it is. It's around here somewhere. So the worksheet was emailed. Maybe check your emails. And you know what? If you don't have it right this minute, it's fine. This is something that you can do as we're going through the training today, or you can do it afterwards. Okay, I just want to make sure that you have it. There is, yes, did it say handout in the subject line, perhaps? Jean is asking. Worksheet was mailed at 1 p.m. today. Okay, handout in subject line. Okay, so you can get the handout now, you can get it later. This is a handout that you can continue to use, but you can fill it out after the webinar. Just wanted to make sure that you get it or that you will get it, okay? It's a worksheet on what we're gonna talk about today. And I just want to remind you of how helpful virtual trainings really can be. I originally took a teleseminar. So this is back in the day when we were doing these kinds of calls on the phone, on like free teleseminar and some of those websites. And we didn't have slides, we didn't have anything. We would just get on the phone and we would all be on the phone. And I took a teleseminar on how to deliver teleseminars in 2007. And in 2012, I finally gave my first teleseminar. Yes, I was very intimidated about doing this technology. So for 5 years, I did not do something that was really easy and that I could have been reaching out to so many more people. And then when I finally started doing webinars and virtual trainings, I was invited to be a guest on someone else's webinar. And because of that, somebody that was listening to that webinar hired me to go and speak to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is NOAA. And so, you know, it may be these little tiny steps that you take to do your own webinars, to be guests on other people's webinars, but get yourself out there because you will gain visibility for your cause. People will know you and like you and trust you by getting out into the world using your virtual trainings. Okay, I see people are starting to find their handouts, and they're also going to be emailed out at the end of the webinar. Perfect. So let's start at the beginning. I like to start at the very, very beginning with your objective. So the question is, what is your objective for doing a virtual training. And by the way, I'm going to go back and forth between virtual training and webinar. I'm going to go back and forth using these terms. They basically mean the same thing. What is your objective? Because we all know that there are a lot of meetings that are pointless. We all know that there are a lot of presentations that are pointless. And we don't want to call people into a meeting if they don't really need to be in a meeting, okay? So it's really important that you always know your objective and that you know what your purpose is for doing the training. So I would love to have some of you type into the chat, or all of you, what results you want from your virtual trainings. Maybe different results for different trainings, but just give me some ideas of the results that you're trying to get from doing virtual trainings. And this is also going to be on your worksheet. So you'll see that there's also a place to write. This is the most important thing that you have to know, is what do you want? What results do you want? Because you need to work backward from your results. Okay, Terry wants people to sign up for a free consult with her. Cindy wants to increase brand and visibility and convert trainees to clients. Okay, what are some other results that you all want from your trainings? And I'm going to keep going with the slides, but keep typing into the chat because I'm keeping it in front so that I can see. So always know what results and what your objective is, because again, you need to work backwards from what those results are. Now, in order to figure out who it is you're actually going to be speaking to, okay, so Stephen wants clients to understand their cost and their price structure and when to act. That sounds like a really good reason to do a training, right? This is not something that you necessarily just want to send out by email. So Cynthia has a question about earning fees by doing virtual trainings. Okay. Cynthia, do me a favor, just copy that question and put it, well, I think somebody, Heidi or Aurora, can come back to some of these questions at the end. Let's do that. I don't want to make you type it and then add it back in at the end. If we can hold some of these questions, because first of all, some things I might actually, address, and then some of these other questions, let's save them for a little bit later on. Okay, so first let's see if I address your questions. And so, yes, I see that Aurora is going to keep track of the questions, and we'll come back to them later if they're not pertinent to what I'm talking about in the moment. Another reason to have somebody help you, right? So somebody else can manage your questions at the end or later on, and you don't have to scroll through a long chat to find all the questions yourself. Okay, now we're going to talk about how to research your audience. So Stephanie wants to connect with potential clients that she wouldn't normally meet because of geographic restrictions. Yes, great example. So who do you want to reach through your webinar? So this is another question that you're going to put on your worksheet. Who are you trying to reach? Who's your target audience, your ideal client? And it's not everyone. It's never everyone, right? So you have to have this really clear. Who is it that you want to reach? And then my most important question, what do they need, want, and care about? So these images on the screen refer to some of the deep-seated needs that we have as human beings. We have need for recognition. We have a need for security and peace and love. And, we also need, want, and care about money. And we also need, want, and care about job security. And again, we talked about visibility and credibility and all these kinds of things. Your audience needs, wants, and cares about those things as well. So I want you to be thinking about who is your audience and what do they want? And feel free to type this into the chat if you like. If you're not entirely clear, that's something you need to work on, right? But it's really important to know who they are so that you know you're delivering the right information to them. Cynthia's audience wants ideas for small business growth strategies. Very clear. Good. So you have a very clear idea of what they want. And so Cynthia, does that mean your audience are small business owners? Is that safe to say? Okay, good. So be really clear on who your target audience is, your ideal client, so that you can be really sure that as you're creating your material, you know who it is that you're talking to. This is the boring stuff, right? But it's the research you have to do in advance so that you know that you're giving people what they need. Now, the next question is, what do they already know? Are they beginners? Are they, oh, you know what? So some people, let me just remind those of you typing into the chat, make sure that you're typing to all panelists and attendees. There's a drop-down menu, all panelists and attendees. That way everybody will see your chat. Thank you, Alice, for mentioning that. I mean, of course, if you do want to type something personally to just the panelists, me and Heidi and Aurora, that's fine, you can do that. But if you want everybody to see, then include attendees in your chat. Now, your audience members are going to be a mix of beginners versus advanced, right? Some people are going to be more beginner level, for example, with Cynthia's audience, for example, her audience may be newer business owners, but they also may have been around for a while. Maybe they want new, fresh ideas, even if they've been in business for a few years, right? So keep in mind that your audience may not always be at the same place. And so by asking these kinds of questions and finding out what they already know, this is how you can find out if they're beginners or they're advanced, or if they need just a basic overview, or if they need nitty-gritty detail, okay? Lori says her audience is business owners and farm owners needing financing for various reasons. Okay, that's very clear. Those are very clear audiences, and maybe two very distinctive audiences, right? Now I want you to think about how you're going to gather this information, okay? Now, the research that the reason I spend so much time in all this research and planning is if you don't know what you want and what the audience wants, it's going to be hard to be engaging and keep their attention, right? So there's no excuse. There's always a way to do it. What I have on the screen here is from the World Tea Expo. I'm a tea fanatic, and so sometimes I speak at this tea conference. And this was a really cool way that the tea bloggers who were going to be having their roundtable, they actually sent out a postcard in advance, which was great. So they sent out a postcard, and then when they got to the conference, they actually had made a little business card. So you see in the front, there's this little business card here. And it also gave a link, well, the link is on the other side, to tell people how to answer their questions. And then also you'll see this on the right-hand side. That is a little screenshot from my SurveyMonkey. So when I know who my attendees are going to be, typically if I'm doing some corporate training for a company who's bringing me in, they can send my questionnaire out to the attendees. And I usually have a good amount of time to learn about my audience. Now, granted, you don't always have that luxury, but there are a lot of ways that you can gather information about your audience beforehand. So ask, 3 to 5 questions about what they need and what they're looking for. And this way you can really tailor your presentation to the people who are going to be there. Okay. Any comments or questions on that particular little section there? And feel free to type into the chat if you have questions. So let's talk next about technology and logistics. This is, I know, what holds people back a lot of the time from jumping into virtual training. Now, for me, I got comfortable with virtual training a few years ago. And yet when Facebook Live came out, I just got scared all over again, because now you're expected to be live. You just pop up on a screen and there's your face and you're live, and then that thing is saved for posterity. So that freaked me out all over again. There's always going to be new technology that we have to learn, but to keep growing and and learning and to be able to reach all of your audiences wherever they are, we have to get better at this, right? For example, some of Lori's farm owners may live in kind of remote locations and they may not want to have to drive 2 hours to a live training. So these are all reasons why we need to get aware of the technology and logistics. Terry is asking if she's going to be able to get a replay. Heidi or Aurora, could you type into the chat and thank you very much. So there will be a replay. Good to know. And so going into technology and logistics, the reality is there is a ton of software out there. So back in the day, we were all using GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, any meeting has been around forever, Maestro Conference. A lot of us were doing Skype. Oh, good, there's going to be a recording and a handout and the slides. Brilliant. And there's also going to be another secret link to something that I'll tell you about in a little while, but there's going to be a secret link to something else, another free thing that I have for you. So there are a lot of different options out there. These days, I'm using Zoom. I personally really like Zoom. I'd love to know what software some of you are using. Those of you who are doing virtual trainings, I'd love to know what you're using in the chat. Go ahead and type that. Zoom has a free version. They have a very inexpensive, low-level paid version. And then they have all kinds of, then it gets more complicated from there. So Terry's using Zoom, Stephen's using Zoom, Zoom and Ring Central, Zoom webinar version. Jean's using Join Me. It's nice when you don't have to download things to your computer, yes. So there are a lot of options out there. So I'm not here today to tell you what to use, and I have no affiliation with anything. Just want to make sure that you are aware of doing your research. So I want you to think about what features you want. Okay. Oh, great. Uber Conference has a free version for up to 4 people. Yeah, see, Zoom is great for free, but they only let you, if you have more than one person, you can only go up to 40 minutes, right? So you could do a Zoom training for multiple people, but you'd have to cut it off at 40 minutes. So all of these have their pros and cons. So I want you to think about a couple things. Do you need breakout rooms? Do you need people to be able to break into groups? Okay, so that's a feature that some platforms have and others don't. Do you like having a chat box like this where people can actually speak to each other? So for example, it's really nice to use, I don't even put Facebook Live on the screen here, but Facebook Live has also works with Zoom, as a matter of fact. If you want your participants to be able to interact with each other and talk to each other, then chat boxes are really nice. Also, you can just use a straight Q&A box where people just type questions to you and they don't interact with each other. Do you want people to be able to raise their hands and vote on something? Do you want people to be able to call in from their phone? What sort of recording capability do you want to have? I am lucky to have gotten a really good deal on the Zoom Enterprise Edition, which is super, super pricey, but I'm getting it through the National Speakers Association. So that allows me unlimited cloud storage. One of the things that is really hard about these is your recording storage, right? So how much room do you have on your computer or on Dropbox or whatever you're using for your storage? Do you have enough cloud storage to be able to save your recordings? So look at all of these features. What kind of storage do you get? I can also get transcription with this very expensive version of Zoom. Not trying to get y'all to get on the enterprise version of Zoom because I'm getting a really good deal through my association. But Cameo may have something like, actually, I don't know. Cameo may actually have something similar to this association benefit. But what I really want you to think about is, what are you able to view in the dashboard? What level of interaction do you want to be able to see? What interaction do you want between your attendees? And so forth. And all of these platforms have a free trial where you can try them out. And so I highly recommend getting the free trial of whatever platform you like. And some people are adding some into the chat. So look into the ones that people are adding on the chat, especially when they have good free versions. I always like free, like I said. And try these out. You know, get some of your friends or colleagues to get on a call with you or on a practice training with you and see how these work. Now, once you decide on your platform and you've been practicing it and you have a good idea of how how you're going to go through your virtual training, now you have to get organized. And virtual trainings are just like a live training in the sense that you need to be organized. You have to have a clear structure and a clear flow. You need to lead your audience down a path to the result that you want. And you want to be able to move smoothly through your visuals if you're using them, and I hope you are. This is a whole other topic of mine, but that is how to do image-based presenting rather than lots of text and bullets and all that kind of thing. It's not as beneficial to your audiences to use a ton of bullets and data and charts and whatnot, but that's not what this particular training is about. Great. Heidi says we don't, but we'll look into it. It is a really fantastic member benefit if you can work that out for your association. I'm really, really happy to have this because it includes the webinar version of Zoom, and it includes all these other things like transcription and cloud storage and all these things that that I would be paying so much money for otherwise. So think about that. So you want to practice. You want to practice your transitions. You want to practice your interaction tools. So if you're going to have people raise hands or type into the chat or those kinds of things, you want to practice it and make sure you feel comfortable moving smoothly through those transitions. A nice thing about sitting at your desk is that you can have a script. So I don't like to use a word for word script because really for most people, unless you're a trained actor, a word for word script does not sound smooth. It does not sound natural. Most of us are not good at reading word for word scripts. And then if you lose your place and you have to go back, it's complicated. So I prefer to use sort of a bulleted outline with key notes, key thoughts written in. Yes, I have written into my notes here where I want you to type into the chat. But of course, I'm thinking of other things I think of, oh, I think this is a good idea for them to type something into the chat. But I also wrote it into my notes where I want to ask for interaction from you so I remember. So I do always run off of some kind of notes. I don't ever trust my slides to be my notes. And that's another reason, I don't want you to put a million bullets on your slides just so you can use your slides as notes. That's not helpful to your audience. It's helpful for you, but not for them. So take the opportunity of having notes at your side. Oh gosh, I could, Jean, I'm gonna put myself back on camera really quick. This is what I'm using. See this? It's a little stand. My notes are on this stand and they're standing up right next to me. Ta-da! There you go. Yes, and right, I printed out. I mean, yes, I like to have my notes on the screen, but I just printed out old school, like when we worked in offices and we typed. Exactly. So you want to practice all of these things and make sure that you're running smoothly. Now, I already mentioned using a support person. So, and this can be, it can be a friend, a colleague. It doesn't have to be a professional person who knows how to do these, all of the details, but really it's just nice to have the person there to keep the audience engaged if you get booted off, to go through the questions and pick out the relevant questions for later. And it's just helpful to have another person on hand. I mean, sometimes when I'm doing Zoom webinars like this, some of the people on the webinars that I teach know more about Zoom than I do, and I actually have gotten help from people on my call for how to figure something out. So that's another reason when people know the platforms. Another thing that's really important, and you know, these are true of any presentation, and that is to always give value. So I really want to talk briefly about always making sure that you're giving practical, relevant, and useful tools to your audience. Give them something they can use right away. One of the things that we know about virtual trainings is that people are very easily distracted. I'm sure you all have a million other things going on right now as we are on this call. And so I don't want to waste your time. So one of the things that I do is like to send out something like a handout or something that people can actually use as we're going through, and make sure that they're getting good notes. But I really want to make sure that my audiences get relevant, practical, and useful tools, not hypothetical, not theoretical, but stuff that you can do the minute you get off this webinar. You can go do it yourself. That's my goal always. And then another thing to really remember, especially I know in the business world, and I come out of nonprofits. I worked for nonprofits for 16 years, so I have a little bit of an issue, with jargon and lingo, but always make sure that you're speaking your audience's language. A lot of us have jargon and acronyms. Type some of your jargon and acronyms into the chat. We'd love to see your jargon, your acronyms, your lingo, and then I want you to think about, does your audience understand you? Because your face isn't on screen, you have to work a little bit harder to make sure that everybody's really understanding you and grasping your information. Like, I'm talking slower right now than I normally talk because I'm a fast talker. But because you can't see me, I want to make sure that you are really grasping everything I say. So I'd love to see some of your jargon and your acronyms. I'm sure Cameo is an acronym right there. And you know what's hard about Cameo? So I was looking for Cameo on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter yesterday because I was promoting this workshop, and Cameo is something different in different places. So sometimes Cameo is completely spelled out, your whole name is spelled out. Sometimes your website is microbiz.org or something like that. I think on Twitter, you're microbizca, or maybe that's Facebook. I can't remember. Anyway, it's super confusing. Alice was looking up Cameo, microbizca. So be really careful with your acronyms and oh, thank you, Lori. Yes, I recognize some of those. I recognize some of those acronyms and some I don't. So be really careful that people understand what you're talking about. If you're talking about the Small Business Administration, say that first. Say Small Business Administration, and then later I'll be referring to this as SBA. Okay, so just be really clear, Jean. Right, so Jean does a lot of computer web design and so forth, and so SEO, search engine optimization, is a word that an acronym that she's going to use a lot. So really be careful, and remember that you have to speak your audience's language because you're going to lose them real fast. Okay, moving on. How do you get your audience's attention and keep it during your workshop? First of all, it's important to create a strong opening and closing. Now, granted, what I did today was I started with housekeeping. It's a weird thing about virtual trainings that you have to do housekeeping with your audiences that you don't have to do when you're live. You have to make sure everybody can, yes, thank you, 15 minutes. You want to make sure that people understand all these logistics first. So you do have to do some housekeeping when you start with your audiences. But I really like to ask for a question. I like to have people, introduce themselves in the chat. Just think of a way that you can get your audience engaged with you right from the very beginning. You might tell a story. You might put a little quiz. And there are also a lot of ways you can do this. A lot of features you can use, I'm going to talk about a little bit later, that you can use to do quizzes and questions and things like that. But think about how you're going to, kick things off with your audience. And I like to make sure that I'm always making an emotional connection in some way. I know that sometimes you have to use stats and you have to use data, but facts are not enough to impact your audience emotionally. You want to activate your audience's emotions so that they will be inclined to make the change in attitude or behavior that you want them to make. And so a lot of you doing training, you want them to do something new as a result of your training, and you want them to feel emotionally activated in order to do that. Okay, so that means you can use a lot of things. If you want people to feel pissed off about the state of small business, do that. Start off with something that's going to make them angry and then show them how we can change things, right? Sometimes you want to draw on people's frustrations and then show them how you help. Sometimes you want to start with humor, or you want to start with a story. There are a lot of ways to reach your audience, but just remember the emotional connection is really important, and that stats and data aren't enough to get people to change their attitudes or behavior. And then just regarding closing, I want to make sure that you always leave your audience with your big idea, okay? And what that means is don't end on Q&A. I'm just gonna jump to the main point here, and that is don't end on Q&A. Why not? Anybody have any ideas? Just type into the chat why we don't leave our audience with Q&A either in a live presentation or on a virtual training. Anybody want to share your thoughts on why we don't leave people with Q&A? I'll come back to that in a second. And I'm going to type it in so I remember. Yes, thank you, Cynthia. Yes, so Alice says you lose control, right? Because people are getting ready to leave and they're grabbing all their stuff and they're already not paying attention, and then you get a bummer question or a Debbie Downer. It can backfire when people want to tell you long stories. And yes, Andy says you want the last word. Of course you want the last word. And Stephen says Q&A is not a call to action. So look, I didn't even need to tell you this, but I really like to bring this up to my audiences because this is really, really important that you end with your big idea. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about engagement. I like to use a lot of analogies and examples. I want people to be able to understand my concepts through analogies and examples. And so for me, one of the ways that I do is I use this analogy of 17 locks, which I'll tell you about briefly. A friend of mine was questioned in a news article about if we have so much great computer security, and if we have if security is so good, why do we keep getting hacked? Why do we still have to deal with malware, and why do people keep breaking into our computers and hacking into our computers? And my friend, who's a computer security expert, said, well, it's like putting 17 locks on your car. Sure, you could have, a password with 30 characters and eyeball, retina recognition and fingerprints and all that on every single thing you do. But do you want that? No, nobody wants 17 locks on their car, and nobody wants 17 ways of logging into their computer. So for me, that analogy of 17 locks was a perfect analogy for why our computers are not as secure as we want them to be, because we also want them to be user friendly, right? And that's what we do. So how do we keep our audience involved? Okay. I mentioned a little bit before doing something like a poll, asking them questions, but and some platforms have a polling feature. There's also something called Poll Everywhere, and I'll type that into the chat, Poll Everywhere, that you can actually just add right into your PowerPoint slides. But think about how you can keep your audience engaged by asking them questions, using polling features, using chat and Q&A like what we've talked about. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Here's an example of a poll. This is poll everywhere. Here's an example of a chat or a Q&A, which we're all doing right now. And something else I like to do is a giveaway. And really quickly, Heidi or Aurora, can you tell me how many people we have on the call right now? That would be really helpful, because I'm going to do a giveaway. Okay, so I'm using a random number generator, and I'm randomizing between 1 and 17. So number 2, whoever is on your list, Heidi and Aurora, whoever is number 2 on your list of registration, I'm going to give that person a free signed copy of my book. So this is something that I like to do. And if I'm doing my own webinars, I'll actually announce this in advance so people know to come and be live on the call so they get something free. And I also usually will give something away at the end. We don't really have time for that today. But yeah, I do love giving away free stuff. So whoever was number 2 on the registration list is Heidi and Aurora can get me their information, and I will, Cindy, awesome. So afterwards, just get me Cindy's info or connect Cindy with me, and I will get her a copy of my book. So this is another way to just get people to come to the call and be there live and stay till the end, is giving something away if you can. Now, you might not think that physical delivery is something that matters when you're on a virtual training, but I beg to differ, and let me tell you why. First of all, your voice is all they have, right? Your voice is all, especially if they're looking at slides, they don't have your face. So you really have to be careful about how you use your voice to get people engaged with you. I'm typing random.org is how I randomize numbers. And this time I downloaded their app so I could do it on my phone, and I didn't have to go to their website to do it on the website. So really look at how you can practice your vocal variety, your enunciation, how you can practice not talking too fast, because really your voice is all people have of you. And if you need practice on your vocal variety, reading children's books is a really good way to do this. Reading, just go to the internet and look up news stories on whatever website, CNN or whatever, and read a news story out loud and try to make it engaging. But your voice is really, really important when you're on a call or on a webinar like this. And then besides your voice, I also suggest that you stand up. If you're not used to presenting sitting down, you could be, yes, Alice says she always used to stand up for her conference calls. Sitting down can make you sound really dull. So it's really important to either practice having energy in your voice while you're sitting down, or just do your call standing up. Like I'm wearing a headset. So because I'm wearing a headset, I could stand up and walk around, and my headset goes with me. My microphone goes with me. That makes it a little bit easier. If you're a hand talker like I am, use your hands. Really, really use your body the way that you would in a live presentation, okay? It's a benefit that people can't see you if you want to walk around and use your hands. And then I'm also going to suggest, and I swear I shouldn't really have to say this, but how many times have you listened to a person on a phone call or on a webinar who sounds like they're speaking in a monotone? You can't speak in a monotone if you're smiling, okay? So really put yourself in the position of, imagine yourself being in front of a live audience, okay? And smile and pretend that people are really in front of you. Yes, Andy says smiling really shines through, and it does. And I hope you can hear me smiling, because I've been smiling the whole time. It's also my personality, it's who I am. But this is really important. So, okay, I want to take a quick moment. I'm going to show you my contact information here because I want you to know that you are going to get a link from me to get my free checklist bundle. This is my 3 speaker checklist that I give out for free. Okay, so you'll find that at coachlisab.com. And oh, there's supposed to be a link to it's coachlisab.com/free-gift.html. But I'm going to ask Aurora and Heidi to make sure that you get that after. And so this is my contact information. You can find me in all these places, either as Lisa Braithwaite or Coach Lisa B. And then I have 3 final secrets to success, okay? Are you ready? Always practice out loud. You do not sound the same in your head as you sound out loud. And furthermore, don't just practice out loud, record yourself and listen to yourself. Get an idea of how you sound when you're recorded, because you do not sound the same out loud as you do in your head, okay? We're all a lot more eloquent in our heads than we are out loud. You know, nothing personal, but it's just the truth. So you need to know how long your webinar is going to take, and you want to practice your outline or your notes so you sound like you're not reading, okay? Another thing that really can be helpful, especially while you're practicing, is to log on as a participant. Open another browser, another window, and log on as a participant so you can see what they see. This is really important when you're practicing and when you're getting used to using these platforms for the first time. And then the last tip is to include some kind of pre-work or handouts or follow-up resource materials. This is a way to get your audience engaged even before you start your training, and to keep them engaged with you afterwards, okay? So this keeps them connected to you. And if you give them something to do beforehand or something to do on the webinar, then they really stay engaged and connected. Okay, I'm gonna take a little sip of water, forgive me, as I'm gonna go away for a second. Okay. Oh, my clock is different from the wall clock. Okay. So I would love to have you type in to the box any takeaways or ahas, or what one thing you're going to start doing differently when you do virtual trainings. For those of you who haven't done them yet, I would love to hear what your #1 best tip is for when you start doing webinars. But I would love to see in the chat your takeaways, your ahas, and one thing you're going to do differently. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to wrap up. But I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes in case anybody has questions that I didn't get to. Okay, so don't end on a Q&A. So I am going to skip this for the moment, and I'm just going to go straight to the wrap up. If you are already giving live workshops, then you already know how to do this. You already know how to do a virtual training. It's very easy to add on to your toolkit. And it allows you to reach larger audiences from faraway places without having to go anywhere or spend any money except what you're paying for your webinar platform. So I want to see how you all start adding webinars to your marketing and education mix and see how it goes for you. It's going to be huge. I know it. And I want to thank those of you who came today. Here's my contact information again. Thank you for sharing. I see some people have mentioned emotional connection, fewer bullets, practicing the transitions. Yes, the special bonus. Thank you. I want to invite you all, and you're going to get a link to this. I want to invite you all. So the checklists, you will get an email about the checklists and how to get the checklist. I meant to put that link on here for you. So checklist, you can also email me too, checklist link. I'm going to type it into the chat. Feel free to email me and say, what's the checklist link? The other thing is I am doing a 5-day challenge starting Monday called, I'm typing it as well, 5-day challenge called Speaking Up for Change. Typing that into the chat. I am starting a free challenge on Monday that I would love you to consider if you are a person who wants to be doing this more. You want to be speaking up more. You want to get your message out in the world. Okay. It's a free challenge, 5 days to help you get one really important message out into the world. So I know that Aurora and Heidi are going to send that link. I've already given it to them. They will send that link out to you later. And yes, there were questions. Desserts by somebody said is one of the bonuses desserts by Rudy. So Jean happens to know that my husband used to be a pastry chef. And no, desserts are bad. Desserts make me fat. Don't say that. Don't remind me. So Cynthia wanted to know about earning fees. So I will say that what I do is I don't earn fees from my platforms. I basically use PayPal for everything still. So I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question, but I have people sign up for my programs through Aweber. That is the list building system that I use. Some people use, Constant Contact. Some people use, what's the one with the monkey in it? I'm blanking. There are a whole bunch of platforms people use to get MailChimp, thank you, the monkey, MailChimp. So, and you know what, I'm going to put myself back on video so you can see my face again. Yeah, so I use Aweber, and then when people sign up for my programs, I just charge for everything through PayPal. To me, that is super easy. And so I don't try to do complicated, like I don't use Infusionsoft, which has all kinds of complicated things that you can connect and you can have affiliates, and too complicated for me. Okay, so I am pretty much a PayPal, Aweber, and Square girl. That's me. Yes, PayPal has a credit card. Exactly. Now I remember there was another question earlier. Heidi or Aurora, if you could get back, and maybe you want to come on audio and just make sure that we have. Carolina. Okay, connect with potential clients that you wouldn't normally meet because of geographic restrictions. Tell me what the question is here. I'm not seeing what that is, how that's a question. So give me a little more information. Oh, I'm sorry, you're Aurora.
Hi, yeah.
I keep saying Carolina and thinking you're somebody else.
That was from an attendee.
Oh, I didn't realize that was a question. I thought that's what somebody was saying. I think, yeah, she was sharing about how she wants to use virtual trainings so she can connect with potential clients. Yeah, okay. Good, good. I thought, oh no, I didn't get that question. Was there another question that somebody asked earlier or that somebody would love to ask now? Because I'm good to stick around for a couple more minutes. Facebook Live. The new emphasis on Facebook Live versus Zoom. So Facebook Live is spontaneous. Now, granted, you can record Facebook Live. You may not know this. You can record a Facebook Live and just record it to yourself and then put it out to the world. If you didn't know that, I'm telling you now, because I'm a perfectionist and I really don't like doing live stuff. So I learned that I could do that. And but Facebook Live is really meant for more spontaneous kind of, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things, like Jean says, you can add your logo to Facebook Live. So I'm not a Facebook Live expert. So for those of you who know more about Facebook Live, you can jump in and answer. But Facebook Live is sort of an on-the-fly way to connect with your people. So you're out walking around, you've got your phone, and boop, 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 boop. Hey, y'all, just wanted to say hi. I'm downtown at this great art show, and it reminded me of this topic that I want to share with you, blah, 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 right? So it's good for in the moment. Right, and so as Andy points out, it's not great for engagement. People jump in and they jump off, and they'll come in for 2 seconds and then they'll leave. So it's really a way to just be in the moment with people, keep yourself in front of your audience's face, in a sense. Some people do use it for trainings and programs that they want to do on Facebook. Just be really careful how much you give how much of your stuff you keep on Facebook. If you do Facebook Lives, make sure you download them and save them. You never know when Facebook is going to lock you out or cancel your account. You know, you just don't know. So, I mean, even the stuff that you're doing on Facebook, make sure you're downloading it and you have your own copies on your own computer of all of these things. Andy says Facebook Live is not always good quality, which is good. You know, Facebook doesn't technically own what you put out there. I mean, if you make a video for your business or whatever and you download it and you save it, it's yours. But yes, if you have a bunch of handouts and a bunch of stuff in a Facebook group and they shut you down, you may not be able to get it back. So don't keep your things on Facebook. Yeah. Okay, now I'm scrolling. How do I base my fees, Andy, for webinars? Because it's all different. It's very different. Sometimes my webinars are included as part of a larger training package to a company. Sometimes I do free webinars because I want to invite people to a paid program. So I don't even tend to charge for webinars, honestly, although I do have some that are on my website as evergreen products that are $97. So you could go to my website and you could get my webinar on PowerPoint and how to create exercises and all these things. Those live on my website and they're kind of more of a package with some worksheets and some other things. And those are a flat rate of $97 all the time. But generally, I don't charge for webinars. I tend to do them for free and I do them as a way to invite people to a paid program. So hopefully that helps. Speaking up for change. Thank you, Janelle. Speaking Up for Change is sort of a campaign that I have kicked off just for myself and for the people who, like maybe you, who are seeing things in the world that bother you or upset you or that you want to see done better, but yet you may feel uncomfortable speaking up in a big way. You may not feel like you want to get on a stage and talk about these things, but you may want to do a 2-minute Facebook Live to tell people, to educate or inform people about something. You may want to start, you may want to write a letter to your congressperson. You may want to put out a really intense post on social media, but you're afraid of how people will take it. You don't know how people will respond. To me, speaking up for change is all the ways that we can be affecting change in the world in all kinds of ways. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be a small ripple in a pond. I've been posting about this lately on Instagram and Facebook. So if those of you who are on here today, go find me on Facebook or Instagram. On Instagram, I'm Coach Lisa B. On Facebook, it's just Lisa Braithwaite. I've been posting more about this and about little ways that all of us can speak up for change. And again, it doesn't have to be big. It can be in your child's school. It can be in your workplace. It can be in your neighborhood or your community, or it can be bigger. But I really want to help people get a sense of how they can be doing this, be doing more of this, right? Because there's so much going on in the world, which I don't have to tell you. There's so much going on in the world, and we're all passionate about different things. I came out of nonprofits. I'm passionate about domestic violence work. I'm passionate about gender equity work. Passionate about small business. I am a small business. I got my training in small business through Women's Economic Ventures, which is a small business development organization here where I live. There are a lot of things we're passionate about, but what are we doing about it, right? Liking a post or just putting a hashtag out with nothing behind it is not enough. So this is what my, can you tell I'm a little passionate and excited about this? This is what my 5-day challenge is about that's starting Monday. And it's for you to pick one thing, one message that you want to get out. And in the course of that 5 days, build up to the place where you can put that message out there just that one time, or you can go further if you want into the future. Does that answer the question? Because I know I got super excited about this whole topic and I can't help myself. And also I know that we need to wrap up. So Any last questions? Any last comments? Heidi, Aurora, anything else?
No, I think we can wrap up. Thank you so much, Lisa, for all of this content. Thank you to everyone who attended. I will be sending out copies of the recording, the PowerPoint, the handout. All of the information you touched on will be sent to everybody.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate all of your participation. It's really important to me, you know, that we have a conversation. That's what this is all about. And webinars and virtual trainings, you don't just have to be a talking head. You can have a conversation. And when you get your audience to participate, it's so much more fun and so much more enjoyable. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Lisa.
Ciao.